The two of us have been praying for some help on the defensive line for NC State football. Tuesday night, I just had our prayers answered.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Wednesday show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. Monarch like the butterfly, money like the money. monarchmoney.com using code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off of your first year. Happy Wednesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, we were literally just speaking about NC State football needing a little bit more depth on the defensive line, possibly picking up an additional edge rusher. And just like that, one fell out of the sky into our lap. Joseph Adedire, who was an outside linebacker for the Texas Tech Red Raiders, has committed to NC State out of transfer portal. And as I mentioned, I believe it was either Monday or Tuesday, Adedire is interesting because he has elements of both an edge rusher on the defensive line and also as an outside linebacker. In fact, he was listed as an outside linebacker on Texas Tech's roster. And so that is interesting when you're looking at this new system that DJ Elliott is trying to implement with the use of a bandit linebacker, which is somebody that can essentially do both. They can edge rush. They can also drop back and be a linebacker. So Joseph Adedire is coming to Raleigh, Kenton. What does this mean for that defensive line?
I think that this is a very exciting get. I'm going to be very honest with you. I think this is a very exciting get because at the end of the day, we need all the help that we can get defensively. Mm-hmm. When you think that one of the pieces we have that's coming back that is going to be somewhat of a staple of this team and Kamal Bonner leaves, even though he's an off-the-ball linebacker, they don't play the same position at all, we still discuss the need for, hey, pass rushers right away, what we got. And so I think that you're definitely doing a good job of adding Adedire here. This is a young man that has made a Big 12 all-conference team in the past, and at the end of the day, his stats the next year were better. But, he didn't reach the same type of accolades. So all in all, I think that it's a very good get here. And I'll tell you this much. I think that 265 that he's listed at, a little generous, little generous there. But he is somebody that has those movement skills that in limited spurts, I would be all right with seeing him drop into coverage. But primarily, he's going to be a pass rusher.
Yeah, he was an all Big 12 honorable mention back in 2022, which was his freshman season at Texas Tech. I don't want to sound condescending here, but it's a little interesting to me. So remember how I said that the Big 12 doesn't really value defense that much? This might be another example of that. So he was Big 12 honorable mention on the defensive side, 19 tackles, 3.5 TFLs, and just 1 sack on the season. That next year in 2023, like Kenton mentioned, his stats were better. 25 total tackles, 4 TFLs, and just 1 sack, and then a pass defense as well, a PBU. And yet no recognition at all, despite his stats going up. I don't know what to make of that. Also, it's not really that impressive of a stat line if we're being 100% honest here. Yeah, we know what we know about the Big 12, and that defense is oftentimes optional. But I say all that to say this is a much needed get for NC State's defense. We spoke at lengths. Who's going to be able to rush the quarterback on a consistent basis? Who's going to be able to wreak havoc in the backfield on a consistent basis? There's a couple guys on the roster that might be, feasible options, a Brandon Cleveland, a Trevally Price, maybe a Sean Brown coming around the edge as well, but you need more consistency there if you can rely on your defense to be, stable for the majority of this year. And we have our suspicions about what the offense is going to have to do this year in light of the defense, but that's why a pickup like Joseph Adedire is so important, not just for, purely depth purposes, but he might be coming here to get starter snaps almost immediately. And a guy that played so well at Texas Tech but was injured last year, if he's coming back from that and still has a lot to prove of himself, he could work himself into a very nice role here straight away with the Wolfpack. So I'm impressed that NC State was able to get this done. You would think that a kid with, previous Big 12 honors, again, maybe that maybe that doesn't stand for much these days, but it is kind of impressive how under the radar this kid has flown, and yet NC State was able to snatch him up pretty quickly. So I think he visited just a couple days ago, and now he's already in the bag. So it's a great situation for NC State. You needed a guy, you went out and got a guy. So Kenton, I'll go ahead and pose the question here. Does it make you feel substantially better about the defense, marginally better, or about the same?
Oh, Grayson, we are so much so brothers from another mother, because marginally better is exactly what I would say. Don't get me wrong here. I do think the defense gets better here. Without a doubt. And you talk about where's the pass rush going to come from. In my opinion, every college football team, if you are talking about a top end front, you need 6 guys that can rush the passer at a high level. 2 on the inside at minimum and 4 on the outside, again, at minimum. Because the reality is, if you got a guy on the inside who can't rush well, but he could just compress the pocket, if you got big guys that can compress the pocket, guys on the outside that can rush, you'll be fine. If you get 1 or 2 guys, big guys, Brandon Cleveland style guys with pass rush use, they're in the money. You really can't ask for too much more than that. But those edges are generally where you see most of the pressure generated from. But in the question of how much better does this make the defense, again, I think that he's good. I think he definitely makes the defense better. But you're still stuck with the question of, well, what else is needed? What else needs to be added on top of this? What else does the Pack need to do to fully cement themselves in a really good position here? And again, I would say you're going in the right direction. You're not fully there. You're not at a spot where I would say, hey, this pickup alone makes this defense short up. And that's not a knock on Joseph. That's just an honest assessment of where this defense is. You talk about all of the transfer portal exits that we've seen out of the secondary, including Coley as our most recent exit. You're seeing a situation where, again, if you don't have guys that can get home right away, a bunch of them, it helps to have more guys that can get home, but it's tough to replace those guys and pretend, hey, everything is fine right away, because, again, we just don't have a bunch of guys who play quality power 4 snaps. We don't have that on the secondary. Same thing with the linebacker room now, with Bonner leaving and Caden Fordham being, still recovering from his ACL. You have a situation where, again, this is better. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, the defense is exactly the same as they were before picking up Mr. Adedire, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you, all right, problem solved. Get ready to see what we saw in Tony's heyday, in Tony Gibson's heyday. We're not, not there.
Yeah, it may be a marginal improvement, but it is an improvement nonetheless. And we've spent obviously a lot of time talking about the basketball portal front, but I want to draw a small parallel here to Terrence Arsenault, who ironically is also joining us from the state of Texas. But Terrence Arsenault, much like Adedire, they were 4-star prospects coming out of high school. They started to prove themselves a little bit early on in their career and then got injured. And now they're reaching a point where they're looking for what they perceive to be greener pastures. And so I think Adedire is kind of similar in that clearly he was identified early by Texas Tech as a kid that could provide an impact, as he was, all Big 12 honorable mention back in his freshman season in 2022, got injured, had to, go through that entire process and missed the whole season of 2024. And now he's looking for a new stop. NC State is that stop. So he's obviously feeling like he has a lot to prove. And him coming here at this point of the cycle, he is a direct need that NC State had to go find in the portal. Like I said, he could be coming here to compete almost immediately. Like we're talking day one, he could find himself running with the ones once fall practice rolls around. So yeah, again, I think this is a good get for NC State, one that you had to go out and find. Went out and identified Joseph Adedire. He is now running with the NC State Wolfpack. Coming up next, we're switching gears into some basketball portal talk. We talked about some potential big fish coming down the line, but if you had to choose just one, who are you going with? More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our Wednesday sponsor is Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder where the heck did all my money go? Between dining out, shopping online, and sometimes entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes into play. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in just one place so you can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. Managing your money with your partner is also now smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all of the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's Monarch like the butterfly and money like the money. monarchmoney.com using code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for 50% off of your first year, only at Monarch Money. Middle portion of our Wednesday show, wanted to expand a bit more. On Tuesday's show, we spoke about some big fish that are potentially able to be reeled in by NC State and Will Wade. We talked about PJ Haggerty, who's the 6'3" guard from Memphis. He was third in the country in scoring this season. He averaged 21.7 points per game with the Memphis Tigers. We also spoke about Darion Williams from Texas Tech, 6'6" forward. He averaged 15.1 points for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Also averaged, I think it was like 21-7 in March Madness. Two extremely high-level players that have got it done at a very high level and have now put themselves in position to be two of the top remaining players left in the transfer portal. As we kind of poked at on Tuesday's show, it's probably likely that NC State's only going to be able to reel in one of them. We know that PJ Haggerty was talking about a $4 million price tag. That feels unlikely for virtually anyone, let alone NC State. So if NC State is going to land PJ, it's certainly not going to be for $4 million. You'll be looking at a much lower price. Well, maybe not much, but a lower price nonetheless. And then you have Darion Williams currently going through the NBA draft process. How long that takes is kind of still up in the air. But if he does decide to return to college, NC State and Kansas are expected to be the two frontrunners there, with there only being 4 roster spots left here. And you got to figure you have a glaring deficiency in the front court. You still don't have a current center, but Williams is not a center. We feel pretty good about a potential option at center, but you still have a glaring weakness in the front court. You have some good options at guards, but you don't have an option like a PJ Haggerty, who is by definition a showstopper. If it comes down to it, and NC State can only land one of them, who would you go for?
Williams. And it's not even close. It's not even like a tough thought for me. We have watched for years a lack of ability to rebound from NC State teams. We have seen it. We have seen it. With all due respect to Haggerty, he is not a rebounding guard. And guards, de facto, do not rebound in the same way that forwards are expected to.
I do have a funny stat, though.
Oh, what's the funny stat, Grace?
PJ Haggerty actually averaged more rebounds this past season than Darion Williams. Now, I don't expect that to be a trend to continue, moving forward into the next season. But statistically speaking here, PJ Haggerty averaged 5.8 boards, Darion Williams 5.5. Now, there's different factors at play when you have a JT Toppin on Texas Tech or maybe a Dane Danger at Memphis. But I will say the season before last, Darion Williams averaged 7.5 rebounds and PJ Haggerty averaged 5.5. So he's pretty consistent right there in that 5 spot, which is very impressive as a guard. But I do anticipate that Darion Williams is the clear-cut better rebounder.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking for here. I need more size on this team. Obviously, we expect to land a center. We're not expecting Williams to fill that role. But, again, I still need more size. And even beyond wanting more size, where do we have guys that can get it done? If we ask ourselves, do we have guards that could potentially fill it up next year? Yes. Yes, we do. At the moment, do we have forwards that we look at and say, hey, that could be a 15-plus point per game guy? No, we don't. So I think that Williams answers a couple holes as opposed to Haggerty answering one. And don't get me wrong, that's a big one. That coming as a ready-made showstopper, coming as a ready-made 20-a-game guy, that's a very big hole. That's a very big role that you would need to step into. But if I'm talking about, hey, what needs to happen in order for this team to be successful, give me some size immediately.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Darion Williams makes the most sense, both on a practical level, because, we need depth. We need length, more importantly, in that front court. And Darion Williams ticks off every single one of those boxes. Physicality is another box that he definitely brings to the table as well. And to Kenton's point, this is a guy that would come into NC State and more than likely be a walking 15 to 20 piece you're looking at like every night. And that's not something that NC State has seen a ton of in years past. But Darion Williams would be a massive get for Will Wade in the front court. But also on a financial sense, when you have Haggerty who's looking at trying to get $4 million, and again, that will not be coming from NC State. They will not spend that kind of money. Maybe Texas does, but I doubt it. Maybe Ole Miss does because they're desperate. That'd probably be the most likely source, but who really knows? From a financial standpoint, when Haggerty's going to demand $4+ million, which State will not do, Darian Williams also makes a lot more sense there because it'd be a lower asking price. Now, not to say that his isn't also high, because this is a very high-level player, one of the top remaining players. I'm looking probably like 2.5+ million for Darian Williams, but I'll say it again here today. That is why the patience is about to pay off for Will Wade and this staff. Them not overspending early on somebody they would like to project in the lineup has put you in a position now where you essentially get the pick of the litter, and other teams are dropping out of the race because they don't have enough money left, but NC State does. So I'm with you. I think the most practical and the most logical choice is Darian Williams, but I think you can make some cases for PJ Haggerty when you have a guy that averages 20+. I mean, albeit in the AAC, which is not the ACC, he's a very talented scorer, PJ Haggerty is. And when he brings a little bit more to the table in his ability to rebound, yeah, there's a lot of value there, certainly. And I don't think he's asking for $4 million for no reason. I think it's incredibly high, but I think it's not for nothing. He is one of the best players, not just in the portal, but in the country when he's rolling at that type of clip. So if you can do a little bit of maneuvering in that budget, then I don't know, maybe that could be made happen here. I also don't think that the staff is concerned at all with stepping on toes. And I think I've seen that from some people saying like, well, if we get PJ Haggerty, what does that mean for Trey Holloman? What does that mean for Matt Abel? What does that mean for, whoever else at the guard, Paul McNeil? I mean, if you're NC State here, are you focused on stepping on toes or are you focused on getting better? Are you focused on bringing the most possible talent you can to this roster? That's what you should be concerned with. And I guarantee you, Will Wade would tell you the same. They're not coming to State to hold hands and say, well, we need to divvy out our playing time and make sure everything's equal for everybody. No. We're trying to be a top 4 team in the ACC, baby. We need the best talent we can possibly go out and find. And so I think that is why PJ Haggerty is a very interesting option looming in the distance. And the last point I'll make here, when you talk about the timeline of both of these guys, Darian Williams, who's going through the NBA draft process, it's a bit more of an unknown. Basically, he could go all the way through the combine, which I think is like mid-May. So you're looking at additional weeks of basically waiting around to see what he does. What if you really hone in on him and you wait for weeks and then let's say like May 20th rolls around. He says, you know what? I'm taking my talents to the NBA. Then what? Then you're screwed. Because what if by that point, PJ Haggerty has already chosen Ole Miss, for example? What do you do then? I don't have the answer to that question, but the timelines for this is also a very intriguing piece.
I'll tell you this. Like you said, there are multiple arguments for Haggerty, and I don't think that he is at all a consolation prize or here, damn, I guess type of guy. Right. I mean, we've seen that in the past here. We've seen situations where recruiting and all that didn't exactly work out in our favor, and somebody had to get the offer, and then that player was thrust into playing time, and we were all watching through our fingers doing oh God, please, no, please. So, I'm fine with either one of these guys coming, but if I had my preference, I choose Williams. But again, like you said, there's definitive arguments for Haggerty. You can make the argument of he is definitely in the portal. He is definitely going to be playing college basketball next year. That is 100% certainty. And there's always the idea of a bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. But again, there's still, the argument of, well, yes, there is the bird that is going to be playing college basketball, but he's not in hand either. And the bird in the bush fills more holes than the one that's closer to your hand, I guess.
Right. I don't think there's necessarily a wrong let me not say wrong. I don't think there's a bad option because there are two extremely talented players, but I think there is a much more sensible option. And by both of our accounts, I believe that to be Darian Williams from Texas Tech. So if we had to choose, I think that is who NC State should hone in on, but this will be a very fascinating development to watch here over the coming weeks. If Darian Williams does range into late May, can NC State wait that long? Does PJ Haggerty wait that long? What if PJ Haggerty wants to have a decision by May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo? He's sitting there eating tacos and says, you know what? I need to commit here relatively soon. If that is something that turns out to be developing here, it's a very interesting hypothetical, and we Want to know what y'all think. Would you rather have PJ Haggerty or would you rather have Darian Williams come to NC State? Two very different players, very different positions, but they would bring a ton to the table in year one for Will Wade. And coming up next, we're rounding out our Wednesday show discussing Pac-9 baseball. One of those midweeks. I tell you what, one of those midweeks happened again. We'll discuss more after a quick word from our sponsors. Last couple minutes of our Wednesday show. NC State baseball was in action on Tuesday night, their last home midweek of the season. It was against the UNCW Seahawks. And remember all those midweeks that we had to live through last year and kind of worried if they'd bleed into this year? They did early, but then we kind of solved the crisis. And then Tuesday night happens and you lose another midweek that you cannot afford to lose. A 6-3 loss to the UNCW Seahawks. I will obviously focus the majority of this discussion on what it means for NC State and their hosting probabilities, the RPI, of course. RPI before last night was 22, which puts you in striking range with a couple more ACC wins. With a loss, they now drop back to 28, which it doesn't ruin your hosting chances. It certainly doesn't help either. It makes your chances to get into the top 8 a little bit more tough because the top 8 is extremely stiff competition this year. But 3 things are all true. 1, you probably shouldn't lose that game. 2, it sucks that you did. It's extremely frustrating. And 3, it's not the end of the world. When you have a hot Miami team coming up this weekend, you still got to play the Dirty Foot Club, and then you round out with a very beatable Stanford team in Raleigh. 3 ACC series. If you can find a way to win even like 2 of those 3 series, you're going to be a host. The rest will take care of itself as long as NC State handles business here in these last 3 weeks. Does the loss suck on Tuesday night? Yeah, it sucks. You should not lose that game, and it hurts your resume now that you did, but there's still a lot of work left to be done on the table, and if you take care of it, things will be fine.
The midweek must is back, ladies and gentlemen. The minute we thought we got rid of it, the minute we thought we got rid of it, the minute we thought that we put some deodorant on this thing, all of a sudden, we go right back to these kind of disappointing midweek showings. Obviously, this was, I'm not going to say a crushing blow, but, not ideal, but you live with it. Don't let one loss turn to 2, turn to 3, turn to 4. You have an extremely hot Miami that you're going down to see. You cannot mope and feel bad for yourself. Everything that you want is still in front of you.
Yeah.
If you do something crazy like win out and win the tournament, you're probably going to be in the top 8. If you even win most of your series and win the tournament, you're probably going to be right outside the top 8, like right there knocking on the door to get that. So, don't let this linger. Get the midweek must off you. Put your deodorant on. This ain't Syracuse. Even losers get washed over here, okay? Go ahead, take care of this. And again, go back to what made you hot in the first place. Obviously, there are lots of things that didn't go right there. Obviously, the offense, the bats weren't bad, and it just didn't show up in a meaningful way there. We'll be okay. It is one game. College baseball works this way sometimes. Pick your head up, go forward.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. Everything you want is still right there ahead of you. And if you turn that midweek must into some weekend winning, which they have been doing a lot of, then everything will be fine. If you go down to Miami and either beat them 2 out of 3 or sweep, you basically wipe out this loss that you just suffered to UNCW. And then if you go on the road and beat the Dirty Foot Club, possibly sweep the Dirty Foot Club, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if you pull off something like that, then yeah, you are in fantastic position. This loss, although it sucks, it does not derail the bigger picture. It's all still there, but you still got to handle business. It's not going to be handed to you by any means. You still got to go out and take it. So frustrating loss, a loss that you can't afford to suffer at this point of the season, but it's not the end of the world. Everything that this team wants to do, which is host, is very much still up for grabs. So Pac-9 will be on the road down in Miami this weekend. Miami's been hot. They've been kind of up and down all over the year, but right now they are very much up. If NC State can go down there and win the series, you will still be in fantastic position. That will do it for us here on Wednesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Give us your thoughts on the addition of Joseph Adedire for NC State football, a much-needed get for both the edge and possibly as an outside linebacker. Give us your thoughts on PJ Haggerty or Darian Williams. If you had to pick one, who would be your pick? And last, give us your thoughts on the Tuesday loss to UNCW. but this weekend's upcoming series against Miami for Pac-9 baseball. We'll see y'all tomorrow on Thursday for more, and until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.